The Boston Celtics take down the Atlanta Hawks 113-103. Then it's the three-man weave united for the newest segment, Passing the Rock, where we hit everything from a busy week in Celtics coverage. That and more coming up next here on Green with Envy. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, it's your boy Will Ware checking in. How you doing? How you living? Big dub in the TD Garden for the Boston Celtics, 113-103 over the Atlanta Hawks. Joining me here to break it all down is my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. What it do, bro?
What's good, man? Great win. We might have to readjust the thumbnail that we put up on the video from earlier today for Passing the Rock, because I don't know if there's a Jason Tatum problem.
I mean, I don't know if there is either. And this is sometimes the, little behind the scenes here for y'all tuning in. This is the issue when we try to figure out the schedule sometimes, right? And why we always try to post very as close to, whenever we record as it is, because things change. And so, you'll hear, for those of you listening on the podcast version here, you'll hear this in the second half. We recorded Sunday morning, myself, Greg, Adam. We hit a whole wide ranging scope of topics surrounding the Celtics and the NBA, one of which is there a little bit of a Jason Tatum problem? Certainly not the case tonight, but I do think there's some things that we can get into from that. But, one quick programming note that I do want to mention here is a little bit of big news here. We're creating a Discord page, guys. We want to be more interactive with those of you listening to us here on YouTube and those of you that listen to the podcast and those of you that maybe cross over and do both and follow us across socials. We want to be a little bit more interactive. So you're going to hear us over the next couple of weeks. Keep mentioning this Discord page. And if you're curious how to join, check down in the description box, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple or one of those niche podcasting systems I know some of you crazy kids like to use just to be different. It's going to be in those descriptions. It's going to be in our bios. So tune in, check that out, and you'll hear it again here. If you're listening on the podcast form and not YouTube, you're going to hear a little bit more from Adam about what that looks like, what you're going to see, but should be a fun time. Anything you want to add to that here, Greg?
Yeah, when you go to the Discord, just let us know where you tuned in from. Are you a pod listener? Are you a YouTube viewer? Did you follow us on Twitter? Just let us know so that we can kind of track who's joining the Discord. That would be helpful for us just to know where the people are listening.
Yeah, and we appreciate everybody for joining in. And like I said, we just want to keep taking this to the next level. So with that said, let's do what we do after every game here, and let's hit it up with a morning box score. The Boston Celtics take down the Atlanta Hawks 113-103 in the TD Garden. Let's start with the Atlanta Hawks. DeAndre Hunter, 7-14, 24 points, 4 rebounds. Not going to lie, that kind of snuck up on me that DeAndre Hunter had 24 points in this game, as obviously Trae Young and Bogdan Bogdanovic really felt like they carried the load offensively. Bogdan Bogdanovic, 8 of 12, and was an 8 of 8 at one point, had 23 points and 7 rebounds for the Hawks. 33 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists for Trae Young. Let's flip it over to the Celtics here. Like we said, we talk about in the second half of the podcast, a little bit of struggles from Jason Tatum. Tonight, not the case. 34 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Did have 6 turnovers on only 11 of 25 shooting, but still a really great game from Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown, 9 of 19 from the field, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 21 points on the night for him. Derek White doing it all just like he does each and every night. 15 points and 11 assists for Derek White. Al Horford, 15 rebounds in this one. 12 points for Sam Hauser off the bench. And of course, we'll get to it, but our guy, Neemias Queta, looking like Mitchell Robinson out here. Yeah. 7 points, 10 rebounds, 6 of them on the offensive glass for the Celtics tonight. They dominate on the glass. A lot of big rebounding numbers for the Celtics tonight across that box score. 66-50, the edge for the Celtics on the glass. They win the second chance points, 17-8. Points in the paint, 46-34. Greg, a lot of good stats coming out of this one for the Celtics, who take home a 10-point dub. What do you look at as to what was the key to success with The Celtics missing 2 starters in this game. No Drew Holiday, who was a game time decision with that ankle injury, and then Kristaps Porzingis with that calf. They're going to give that a little bit of a time. He might be out for a few games. So down 2 starters. What was it to you that was most important to help the Celtics get the stub?
Well, these are the games that the Jays really need to step up, and I think they set the tone early in this game. You know, Tatum, of those 6 turnovers that he had, I feel like a lot of them were pretty early on in the game, especially in pick and roll. They were trapping him pretty hard, sending 2 to the ball, and Tatum did a really good job getting off the ball early and starting the pass first mindset, which Jaylen Brown then continued into the fourth quarter. You know, after the last game in Orlando where Jaylen really struggled and everyone struggled against that great Magic defense, you know, you were wondering what type of mindset he'd have in this game. You know, he had that crazy dunk that he threw down on Capella, but to me, it was the processing in the fourth quarter. They continue to go to Jaylen Brown to initiate offense and to be a playmaker to get him those reps. And it's been, you know, to mixed results, as we're going to talk about in the second half of the pod for those listening in the pod. But tonight was a really good example of why you want to continue to give him those reps. Although Atlanta is not a good defensive team, it is important for Jaylen to start making the right reads, even against the bad teams. So eventually, as he goes up against more physical defenders and better schemes overall, he's able to make some of the reads, maybe not all of the reads to the level which he did tonight. But the very easy things that Jaylen did, like his post creation, passing out of the post, where we had seen Jaylen Brown kind of going to that little fadeaway baseline that he hit. I think it was in the third quarter or early fourth quarter.
When he went across the middle. I think it might have been on Bogdanovich, if I remember correctly.
Right. And he had a couple opportunities in the post in the fourth quarter, and I thought he was going to go to his shot because that's what Jaylen Brown does. And he didn't. He even overpassed on one point where he had the shot on Bay, and then he kind of got caught in midair looking for a pass out to the perimeter and turned the ball over. I think that was his one turnover in the fourth quarter. But overall, really impressed with Jaylen Brown's willingness to play within the offense in this game. That's what you need to see out of Jaylen. And then Tatum, you know, he wasn't quite MVP form tonight, but he was pretty damn close to it. And he was the best player on the court. Trae Young wasn't far behind him on the offensive side of the ball. And then JB also had a wonderful game.
Yeah, I mean, JB, it's so funny, man. It really just comes down to his decision making. That's really kind of the breaking point each night for Jaylen Brown is of course, you know, is the shot going in, but that's every single player. You know, are they hitting shots? Because even if you're making bad decisions, it looks a lot better when the ball's going in, right? So I think with Jaylen Brown, you look at the Milwaukee game and you look at this game tonight, and you know, you and I talk a lot about how we look at a basketball player. Is do I generally agree with the decision that they're making on the court? And in those 2 particular games and the first half of that Magic game, the answer has been yes. So I think this was, you know, a really nice night for Jaylen Brown, and being one of those teams, one of those, you know, tier 3, tier 4 teams, wherever you want to slot the Hawks in the NBA. These are the games where you want Jaylen Brown throughout different stretches of the game to be able to kind of carry that load so that it's not all on Tatum. And especially on a night where you don't have Holiday, you don't have Porzingis to rely on, you need him to be reliable enough to be able to handle in stretches where he's leading a second unit that has Pritchard, Cornette, White, and Hauser out there, right? That's like you and Derek White are the ones that are shepherding that load right there. So, you know, that was really good to see out of Jaylen Brown. You mentioned with Tatum, you know, the 6 turnovers, they get a little bit sloppy at different times. That's something we'll touch on again in that second half of the podcast here, looking at some of his assist and turnover numbers over the last, you know, 6 games or so. It's kind of close to that Jaylen Brown, you know, 1-to-1 ratio. And that's something that needs to get better. But this was a really good Jason Tatum game, so I don't want to harp on that. 34 points, 9 rebounds, was very aggressive from that standpoint. And then I think, Greg, for me, I was looking at Derek White tonight. And a big thing that we talk about with, you know, let's take Tatum away from it, but with Jaylen, Porzingis, and Holiday, one of the things that we're noticing early on in the season is sometimes it's a little bit too equal opportunity, and it's been coming really hard. Not always hard, but at times difficult to find out whose turn it is to do what, who's about to step up and do what they need to do. And Derek White is the guy that we don't have to worry about that, because it feels like when he needs to step up and kind of take advantage of opportunities like Holiday and Porzingis being out, he can do so without ruining the flow. And then also when those guys are there, know when to take a step back, but then also know, hey, I got a hot hand or I have a mismatch, and know when to take advantage of that. Just another great example tonight, I thought, from Derek White. Wasn't hitting the 3-ball tonight, but got to the line 5 times, had 11 assists, had 4 rebounds, had 3 steals, 15 points, 11 assists. Hard to ask for more out of Derek White in a night when he doesn't have his backcourt mate with Drew Holiday.
Yeah, and with White, if you're not paying attention to the little things that he's doing on the court, especially going up against Trae Young when we're in a deep drop coverage, it's easy to be like, "Oh, Derek White's getting cooked tonight," because like Trae Young did give it to him for sure, but that's more of a schematic thing than just a D
Mm-hmm.
White thing. He's in lock and trail that whole time when we sit in drop, and that's just something that we had to make an adjustment to as a team when we took Kata, who I want to talk about here in a second, when we took him game. We went to Banton, we went to Horford, and we started switching everything so that Trae couldn't just pull up for wide open threes, and that really made a difference. I also think JB, when he was matched up with Trae, did a really good job bothering with his length. I think that's
got Trae to get a technical early in the game when he bottled him up, and Trae was getting frustrated.
Right, and that JB gets a lot of hate for his off-ball defense, but I have really liked his ability to contain guys like Trae Young this year. It seems like he's taking that taking up that mantle this year to follow in the footsteps of Drew Holiday and Derek White and just be a pest on the ball, especially when we're in that drop coverage. But I want to talk about Kata because
let's do it. Big Mimi got a lot of fans tonight.
If you look at the minute distribution, Kata played 15 minutes to Cornet's 9. Mm-hmm. Now, I know Kata's a young guy. He hasn't played in the NBA before. Was a great G League player. Brendan Nunez from the Kings, he was like, "Oh, you're getting a fun prospect for sure." When we asked him what to expect out of Kata, and everybody was so hyped from the small glimpses we saw from Kata during the preseason, and we haven't had the opportunity to see him this year. But now with Porzingis being out, Kata's gonna have to play over the next week or two, however long Porzingis is out. Yeah. And when you see the instincts that he has, anytime someone's going towards, really good at moving his feet. They had him in drop. He still, was a little indecisive, but he's going up against one of the best pick and roll players in the league. And he made Trae overthink things a couple of times, forced him into a couple turnovers. And not many bigs are able to do that against Trae Young. And Kata, just the fact that he's huge. That guy is huge.
He's massive. Yeah, he's a presence, right?
And that's a real presence.
And that's sometimes what we've talked about before is like just that size. And obviously Luke's 7'2", but Kata's a much bigger time athlete than than Luke is. Exactly. Yeah. And I thought one of my favorite lines tonight was I think Scal said something to the effect of, "I love watching Kata almost make all these shots." He went 3 of 8, and he had some looks. I even thought we just praised Jaylen Brown's decision making. I thought Jaylen actually missed Kata a couple times where he might have had Kata on some rolls, but that's obviously not playing together. Not sure to look for it.
I was wondering if it was like, did he not see it, or was he like, I don't know if I trust this guy yet?
Yeah, there could be a couple of factors. So that's why I'm not going to make like a big deal on that. Like, I have no idea what their relationship is in practice. Like, Kata's back end of the bench guy, and then you have obviously JB's an all-star starter. So it could be a little bit of disconnect there, but I thought his activity was huge in this game, right? Just the activity that he had on the offense. Like I said, Mitchell Robinson, like 6 offensive rebounds in 15 minutes. Like, that's crazy to be able to have that type of activity. Wasn't shy, 3 of 8, got his shots up there, and he took all the right shots too, right? And I think there's more opportunity for him. And this is something we talk about, when we start passing the rock around with Adam later on here is, what does that backup rotation look like? And you say something at one point where, if Luke's the guy for 8 to 10 minutes, it's great. But if you need to kind of extend, what do you do? And this is where you look at this minutes distribution. And I still think probably if you have a fully healthy team and you need to keep your consistency, keep with your, identity and basketball philosophy, Luke still might be the guy over Kata for 8 to 10 minutes because it's just going to be a little bit more reliable and known. That could change matchup dependent. But over this next stretch, was like you said, I would assume Porzingis is probably out at least the next week, where the Celtics are going to have multiple days off where, whether or not they make the in-season tournament knockout rounds, which is still a possibility, but it's a little bit, it's going to take a lot to get there. There's going to be a few days off while they redo all the scheduling they need to do. And so likely after that game on Friday against the Sixers, there's a chance there's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. It could be up to 4 days off that the Celtics have. So if you're going to rest Porzingis, you might as well take advantage of this time in the schedule to do so. And so that leaves opportunity for Big Nemi. And I know, based off, like you said, in the preseason, he was a fan favorite. Tonight, especially the game being at home, everybody was rocking. I saw some tweets about him getting big ovations inside the Garden. And, this is going to be a big chance for him to prove, I need to be getting just as much run as Cornet or maybe more, or I'm ready. Like, you don't need to go make a trade. I'm here to keep improving, game over game. So I'm really excited for this little Big Nemi run that we hopefully have coming here over the next few games.
It kind of reminds me a little bit, not quite to the degree, because I don't think Nemi's as good as Rob, and I don't think Cornette is as good as Tice. But just in
Mhm.
terms of philosophy, when Brad Stevens just wasn't willing to play Rob Williams early on in his career because he knew Daniel Tice was his security blanket, right? And he was like, I know Daniel Tice is always going to be in the right place. He might have some physical limitations that might cause him to get dunked on, whereas Rob might send that shit back, or Rob might not even be in the play to send that shit
Yeah.
back. But Tice will be there, right? And with Cornette, I think that's what
This
he's
is a good
able to
comp. I like
offer,
this comp.
right? He's able to offer that. He's always going to be there. He's going to be solid. You know that in a pinch, you can put Luke out there, and he's going to be able to run a nice pick and roll. He's going to be able to play out of the dunker spot, but he's not going to be able to be a game changer.
Mhm.
And when you look at Caden, you see these flashes. I'm not saying he's going to be a game changer over 82 games, but hey, he was a game changer tonight. So for
You are.
before people like, oh, dude, like fucking relax. Neemias Caden's not gonna like. He might actually be a game changer in a handful of
I mean,
games
real
this
quick, think
year.
about this. Think about if you could have matched his athleticism with Mark Williams against the Hornets a couple nights ago,
Right.
right? Like,
That's a
like
great
that's that,
point.
that's a little thing that makes a difference in a game the Celtics lost. That maybe it doesn't get to overtime if you have Kada in that position, and he's given some more problems to Mark Williams, who basically was I guess better version of Kada in that game,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. They kind of move similarly too.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like with Kada, I kind of want to just throw him into the fucking fire, man, against the Sixers. Like, let's see how he does against Embiid.
We
Just throw
honestly,
him
like,
out there.
he's going to create a bunch of fouls anyway. So who cares if Nemi plays 15 minutes and has 5 fouls? Like, Embiid's going to pick up fouls. So I'm with you. So I kind of hope that happens. That's exciting to see what's going to happen with Nemi coming up here. One last thing I wanted to touch on before we go is, obviously this was kind of not hyped up as much, but this was a playoff rematch from last year. The
Mm,
Jalen Johnson news
yeah,
was
that
really tough
stinks.
for the Hawks. I thought if I look back to last year, obviously Trey towards the end of the series came on, but then it was DeJounte Murray and Jalen Johnson were easily the two most impressive players for the Hawks, up to about games 5 or 6 when Trey Young really started to come back alive. But you obviously know Jalen Johnson. And DeJounte Murray was just a no-show in this game. 2 of 13 from the field, only 6 points on the night for him, 4
Delano
rebounds,
Banton
3
effect.
assists. I was going to ask you what was the case for this. Joe goes to the curveball with Banton starting instead of Hauser, and I think from a sizing perspective that made a lot of sense. And Banton played solid. I wouldn't say it was anything crazy, but he was solid.
Yeah, I do think that was the reason why they went to Banton, is because of Murray and his midi game that he loves to get
Mhm.
to. Like, Murray's so long. I think he's got an over 7 foot wingspan despite being like 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
And Banton, I mean, they talk about long. That guy, he's talked about 6'9", 6'8", 6'7", whatever he is, he's long, right? So he was gonna be on the court to give DeJounte Murray problems. I really liked how Banton played. We haven't really touched on his performance tonight, but he was 3 for 5 from the field. He had 5 rebounds. I love the way that he was attacking the glass. He was playing well out of the dunker spot. He had a couple nice plays where he's a point guard by trade, although he doesn't have a lot of reps at the NBA level. So he does
Mhm.
see the floor pretty well. I really liked what I saw out of Banton, but I think that contributed to DeJounte Murray's struggles. And then, Jaylen Brown being matched up on him a few times. I think also JB's physicality gives Murray some issues as well.
Yeah, shout
Yeah,
out to Banton rocking the 4-5, Pedro Martinez.
yeah, baby.
That's a great way to placate to the crowd. If you want to win some fans over there, rock that 4-5. But I think that's going to do it for this side. We got a whole other podcast coming up. So once again, for those of you listening to us on the audio version of the podcast, you're going to hear coming up a new segment called Passing the Rock. It's 3-man weave, locked and loaded to get you covered up. For those of you watching us on YouTube, remember to check back in. Number one, go check out the Discord. Come join us. Come have some fun. And then number two, we will be back on Tuesday night after the That's right. Last chance for the Celtics to stay alive in the in-season tournament against the Chicago Bulls. YouTube for that will not be a live stream, but we will have something up late that night, early the next morning to make sure that we have you guys covered for that game. So with that, this is me and Greg signing off. And on the other side, we've got the 3-man weave. Peace.